Hi there. My name
Hey,
is Ria and this is my business partner, Myron.
hey
Uh,
there.
Thanks for checking out our game. And we're here to talk a little bit about our game, which is Spora. So, Spora is a game for the children of the diaspora. It's meant for children who have grown up in a culture that is like mixed. So, we call them third culture kids. But we'll talk a little bit about that. For now, we'd like to talk about the story behind Spora and why and how we came up with the idea. Myron, maybe you'd like to start about like what inspired you for Spora.
Thanks, Ray. And so I think the inspiration for the idea for me started with my niece who was living, she was born and living with us for a little while here in Australia. And I was watching her, play with the iPad and look at or watch Peppa Pig videos. And, as she was growing up and learning how to speak, she started developing, a Peppa Pig accent. So she had an English accent, which was so true to me because she's, a little ethnically, she's a little Filipino girl, but she's growing up in Australia, then she has a British accent. So, it got me thinking about, the idea that what we consume as kids in terms of content shapes so much of our identity and, who we really become as well. So, it got me thinking like, why is there not more content for, third culture kids that Ria mentions? I never really thought about it too, but when you dig into it and you kind of look at these third culture kids, for example, myself, sometimes there's this thing when I was growing up where you kind of feel probably too Filipino for Australia, but you're not, oh, you're too Australian for Philippines, so you're kind of stuck in the middle. But um, I think this is something that a lot of people go through that have this experience, and with this diaspora and immigrating to a new country where you're second gen or third gen, and you're ethnically different from the main group.
That's true.
There's
That's
nothing wrong with that. I think, it's great to take the best of everything, right? But
right.
yeah, that's really what these seeds of the idea came from for me.
Yeah, yeah. And I actually also hear that a lot since I travel for work a lot. I'm in touch with the Philippine embassies in different countries, and they always ask me that. It's like, aren't you don't you make games for like the Filipinos abroad? And like, do they need that? I mean, aren't games like in
You don't
general
even think about
normal,
it,
you know, but
yeah.
but it's not actually. I've spoken to a lot of mothers who well, my migrant mothers, and even children who have grown up and lived abroad for a long time, and they're always looking for like their identity. So they're looking
Mm.
for example, in this case, Filipinos, they're looking for content that's Filipino, that shows who they are, who their or what their culture is. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's big part of, our motivation. And I think just to be clear, it's not just like Filipinos abroad that we're looking at. We're really looking at cross-cultural and third culture kids, right? So big part of my motivation at the moment, I just recently had a daughter and she's a little bit of a fruit salad. So, she's obviously in Australia. She's Filipino blood. She's got Russian blood. She's got Chinese blood. But I want content and games and videos that are tailored to her and her identity and her experience. I wanted to know that, who she is and the mix of who she is valid as any other experience that kids have in any other country. But I do want content that's going to, help her understand who she is in the context of those different, cultures and identities. So, it's a big part of like especially my motivation is, her having things that she can learn from. Hopefully, learn all of these languages if she could as well.
Yeah.
Language is a big part of her identity, right? So, yeah, that's a big motivation for me in creating this project.
Yeah, this is awesome. I mean, I think it's very important to have that understanding between cultures as well. So, I'm very excited about this little project of ours. Let's talk about the
Yeah,
vision that we
absolutely.
have.
Yeah. Well, I think just on the understanding as well, I think it's so important that I think just, especially with everything going on in the world
Yeah.
and the differences that, people go through, it's probably great that we sort of understand and connect with each other better just to hopefully make the world a little bit better. Always good to have, that motivation. But yeah, so talking about the vision, I think, Rhea and I, we've obviously tossed around a lot of ideas and we've been thinking about this for a little while now, probably at least a couple of years, I think, and exploring how do we actually, or how does this manifest in terms of an execution. So I think from our perspective, obviously, games first, right? So we don't want to be, like there's language apps, there's educational apps for kids. Um, even just from a strategic point of view, I think for us, our strengths are in gaming. So from a competitive positioning, we have a vision for this game platform that is game first. It's obviously we want to have some videos and content on there, but it's all driven by entertainment. So we want the learning to be organic and use, basically this form of media to influence and help shape in the right way, the kids or what kids are consuming in terms of content. So yeah, I think that's sort of a collective vision for it. yeah, Ria, obviously, let's get your thoughts on that too.
Well, you know me, I mean, I've been in the gaming industry for close to 2 decades. Gaming is, what I like. And uh, for the longest time, I really wanted to explore gaming as a way of learning, but as a way of learning, not as like a gamified, like
Yeah,
it's
it,
not
almost
primarily a
manipulative.
learning system with, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, with game
yeah,
elements. I wanted it primarily to be a game and entertaining. It just so happens that you kind of learn as you play. So yes, that's very important to me. Narrative is also very important to me within the game. So I think, our like people who are interested in sport can expect that there will be stories, that there will be narratives, a lot of narratives within and outside of the game. So yeah.
yeah. I think stories is always the way that we connect with messages and learn as well. So definitely makes sense, right? And I think I guess talking a little bit about why we think we can pull this off. I guess a little bit about us, but we've done a lot of things in terms of business and startups and gaming area. So obviously myself probably more on the startups and SaaS side, very 0 to 1 focus in terms of building and figuring things out. And obviously your experience in gaming you were just talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so between us,
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And that's also why it's gaming, because at least it's a territory that we understand. So yeah. And we
yeah, I
enjoy.
think the combination of gaming and treating gaming as a product as well is, yeah, there is certainly an art element to gaming, but also when we're trying to create something that people are purchasing, it's at the end of the day still a product, right?
That's true. That's true. And if we're going for learning, you want kids to be able to tinker with stuff, and games allow that. So that's why it's a perfect main medium to use when it comes to Spora, because it allows them to not only find out about the stories within Spora, but also like to tinker around, try certain things out, try the games out, and then without them realizing, they're actually kind of learning through the process. So yeah.
That's the best way, isn't it?
Yep.
So I think, yeah, if you're interested in supporting our game and our project, we have a landing page where you can register for updates via email. Also following us on socials. All of this is extremely valuable to us in terms of getting feedback. We want to make sure that we are creating something that is actually, good fun and you actually want and your kids actually want. We're also looking for funding. So, all of these metrics that we present to investors, unless you want to invest yourself, which is also great, these metrics actually really help us validate that there, people actually want this and that you actually want this, so that we can actually make it happen. So, yeah, please, follow us on socials, register your email and for updates, and yeah, always feel free to reach out to us as well with
Yeah.
any thoughts or feedback.
And if you're
Cool.
also in the space, if you're creating things for multicultural kids as well, please reach out to us. Maybe we can do like partnerships, help each other out. So yeah.